afternoon and good evening, everyone. My name is Taqwa. I am your teacher of English for this session, and today we are going to have a lesson together. So let's not waste time. So our outline for our lesson today is first presenting the layout, task 1, question 2, page 43, with its 3 parts. First we have the introduction. We are going to do the task together. Second, we have development. We have 2 tasks to do together as well. And third, we have conclusion. Second, we are going to see an example of how to describe an itinerary. And third, we are going to do together task 1, question 3, page 43. So let's start. First, let's look at the layout on page 43. So here's the layout. Here we have some titles in the layout. We are going to explain them and see what to do in our report. So the first one is title. It means you are going to give a title to your report, which is the title for your trip. Second, we have introduction. I summarize the itinerary of my trip, departure, stopovers, 2 or 3 stopovers, and final destination. So in the introduction, we are going to talk about departure. It means where are you traveling from. Stopovers, it means the places you visited on your way. And final destination, it means the place you are going to or you're traveling to. Development. We have first landmarks. I describe 2 or 3 landmarks giving historical, architectural, geographical, etc. information. Second, outstanding figures. I talk about 2 or 3 famous personalities in history, literature, or arts, giving biographical information. So here in the development stage or part, we have 2 parts. We have 2 famous figures and 2 famous landmarks to describe and to talk about. Now in the conclusion, in 1 or 2 sentences, I highlight the importance and value, cultural, literary, historical, architectural, etc. of these landmarks and outstanding figures. It means, in brief, we are going to describe the important role of these landmarks and figures we have seen during our trip. So this is just a summary of what we are going to write about in our report. So let's start with the introduction. In the introduction, we are going to describe the departure, stopovers, and final destination. So here we need to know everything about means of transport that we are going to use to travel from one place to another. So first we start with the departure. For the departure, we need to talk about the stations we are going to depart or to travel from. First, we have taxi station or home. Second, bus station. Third, railway station. 4, the airport. And 5, the port. Next, we need to know the means of transport that goes with every station. So here we have a taxi for taxi station and a car if you are departing from home. Second, we have the coach. It departs from the bus station. Train, it departs from the railway station. Plane or airplane, it departs from the airport. And ship or ferry, it departs from the port. Then, we need to know the verbs that we should use with means of transport. For example, to take a taxi, to drive a car. Second, to travel by coach. Third, to travel by train. Fourth, to fly on a plane or airplane. And fifth, to sail on a ship or a ferry. The last thing is that we need to know the name of the journey or our trip using a specific means of transport. So the first, if you are going to use a taxi or a car, you are going to call it a trip. Your travel from one place to another by car is called a trip. For coach, it is the same. If you are traveling on a coach, you say that you are on a trip. Train, the same, we call it a trip. Now for the plane or airplane, if you are flying on an airplane, you call it a flight. Your journey on an airplane is called a flight. And the last one, if you are sailing on a ship or a ferry, you call it a cruise. The name of the journey is a cruise. Now let's see how to form a sentence to talk about the departures using all this information about means of transport. So we have the first example. Our wonderful trip started at the bus station in Tebsة, where we got on the coach to Algiers. So here we have the bus station, which is the departure in Tebsة, and we have the means of transport, the coach, and we have the final destination is Algiers. Second example. Our amazing cruise started at the port in Algiers, where we sailed on a ship to Spain. So here we have the name of the journey is a cruise because we are sailing on a ship. Now the departure is the port of Algiers and the final destination is Spain. Next, development. We are going to see some words we use to describe landmark. So here we have the question. Task 1. I fill in the gaps with the following. So here we have 6 words that we are going to use to fill in the gap in the following paragraph. I read the words: visitors, Granada, Spain, 1882, architect, constructed, and attractive. I read the paragraph. We have here gaps from 1 to 6. We are going to fill in the gaps with the words between brackets. I read La Sagrada Familia. Here's the Sagrada Familia. It's a famous landmark in Spain. La Sagrada Familia is a very landmark which is located in. It was in by the famous Antoni Gaudí. It receives about 3 million per year. Now you have 2 minutes to fill in the gaps with the missing words. Trying, let's correct the task together. So the first one is attractive. La Sagrada Familia is a very attractive landmark which is located in second, Granada, Spain. It was third, constructed in fourth, 1882 by the famous 5 architect Antoni Gaudí. It receives about 3,000,006 visitors per year. Well done. Let's move to the second part of development, which is describing a famous figure. Same task, you are going to fill in the gaps with the following 8 words. We have the old guitarist, painters, October 25th, 1881, painted April 8th, 1973, well known, Malaga, Spain, and was born. Now here we have the paragraph is about the famous Picasso. Picasso was one of the Spanish in the world. He, on, in, he, Guernica, and he died on in France. So here we have gaps from 1 to 8, and we have 8 words to fill in these gaps. You have 2 minutes to do the task. Let's look at the correct answers. So Picasso was one of the well-known Spanish painters in the world. He 3 was born on 4 October 25th, 1881 in 5 Malaga, Spain. He 6 painted Guernica, and 7 the old guitarist. So Guernica and the old guitarist are his most famous paintings. He died on April 8th, 1973 in France. Well done. Now the conclusion. We have some sentences to write in our conclusion. We have 3 options and you are free to use your words. So this is the first one. Thanks to those fantastic landmarks I visited and the famous figures I read about, I became familiar with the ancient history and culture of Spain. This is the first conclusion. It's just a suggestion. Second, we have the amazing landmarks and outstanding figures I learned about in my trip, educated me about the historical and cultural importance of Spain. It's a second option. Third, Spain is a very rich country with its cultural landmarks and unique figures that taught me about the important dates and events in its history. So you are free to use your own words when writing the conclusion. You just need to focus or to write about the importance of the culture and the history of Spain that you have seen in the landmarks and the famous figures. Now, second, describing an itinerary. It means you are going to describe the route that you followed when you were on your trip. So here we have an itinerary. We have a map with some countries, names of countries. So the map starts, or the trip starts from Istanbul to Ankara, then it moves to Cyprus, then Athens, then Bulgaria. So here we have the departure is Istanbul. We have the stopovers, means of transport and visited landmarks. So the first stopover is Ankara. The means of transport we used is train. And here we have the famous landmark in Ankara, which is Anıt Kebir. Anıt Kebir is a mausoleum of Mustafa Atatürk, the first president of Turkey. Second stopover is Cyprus, and the means of transport is the plane. Here the famous landmark in Cyprus is Tombs of the Kings in Paphos in 4th century by the Greeks. The last stopover is Athens, and the means of transport is the ship. So here in Athens we have seen many fantastic views and places. Last we have the final destination. The final destination is Bulgaria, and the visited place is Rila Monastery, 927 AD, south of the capital of Sofia. So we are going to use all this information to write an itinerary or to describe a route that you followed during your trip. Let's see an example. So here we have the itinerary, and here we have an example. Of course, we start the itinerary with the title, which is My Journey to Bulgaria. It means my trip to Bulgaria. So we have here the first introduction. I decided with family to go on a trip to visit many attractive Asian countries and spend our holidays there. So this is a short introduction to talk in general about our decision to visit many places with my family. Now we go to the development, the part of development. First, our amazing journey started at the railway station in Istanbul, where we traveled by train towards Ankara, a beautiful city in North Turkey. We visited the landmark Anıt Kebir, mausoleum of Mustafa Atatürk, the first successful president of Turkey, who ruled between 1923 to 1938. Next, we flew to Cyprus to see the famous Tombs of the Kings in Paphos, which was built by the Greeks in the 4th century. After that, we sailed on a ship to Athens, the capital of Greece, where we visited many fantastic views and places. Finally, we arrived to Bulgaria on a plane, where we took many wonderful pictures at the Rila Monastery, the most outstanding landmark in the capital city, Sofia. It was established in 927 AD at the height of 1,147 meters. So all this is development. In the development, we describe the landmarks and the famous figures that we knew during our trip. Now the conclusion, it is a short conclusion, 2 sentences. 3 days later, we came back home from the most enjoyable trip that taught me a lot about the history and culture of many parts of the world. You describe in general your feelings about your trip. So this was just an example of how to describe an itinerary or a route you followed during a trip you went with your family. Now we have task 1, question 3, page 43. So let's first read again our situation that we are going to write about. You have just come back from a trip around Algeria with a group of friends. You want to post on your Facebook page the report of this trip to make people around the world aware of the cultural and historical richness of your country. Describe your itinerary and talk about the landmarks you visited and the outstanding figures in history, literature, or arts that you learned about during your trip. So this is the situation. Now I have question number 3. Now I can write my report in my copybook and draw the itinerary on a map that will accompany my report on the post. So here simply you are going to write an itinerary about a trip that you went with your group of friends in Algeria or around Algeria. You need to mention the landmarks you have seen, the famous figures you have known, and to describe the route you followed in this trip. So here we have some landmarks in Algeria that you can follow. We have first the Ark of Karakalla, Tebsة, Timgad City, Batna, La Laguna, Annaba, Martyrs Memorial, Algiers, and Timimoun the Red City, Adrar. You can follow the itinerary by following these landmarks, or you can write your own itinerary using other many landmarks in Algeria. So please now stop the video, take your time in writing your itinerary about your trip, and then come back to see the example. So here we have an example of the report. The title is The Fascinating Algeria. So we started our trip from Tebsة, which is famous for the Ark of Karakalla, named after the Emperor Karakalla in the 3rd century. So this is a short introduction. Our departure was from Tebsة. First, we drove to Batna, where we visited the city of Timgad, a historical landmark established by the Romans around 100 Common Era. Next, we headed towards the city of Annaba to see the amazing cathedral La Laguna, and then went to the beach and spent most of the time swimming. After that, we drove to the capital Algiers, which is known for the Martyrs Memorial, which stands about 302 feet high. Finally, we passed through the desert to our destination Timimoun in Adrar, which is also called the Red City. We really enjoyed our time there. We drank their special tea and we tasted their superb dishes. So all this is a development. So this is a description of the route you followed during your trip, and it is a description of the famous landmarks you have visited and the famous figures you knew in your trip. So the last thing is the conclusion. We have a short conclusion. It was an unforgettable trip and we took many photos and souvenirs. So this is a short report that you can follow and a short example that you can write using it, your report about your itinerary and your trip. So thank you for trying. If you'd like to write your paragraphs in the section below, and teachers are going to correct you. So that's it for today's session. Thank you so much for following and for being attentive. Now if you have any questions, please don't forget to comment in the comment section below. I hope you enjoyed the lesson. Thank you and see you next time inshallah. Bye.
شكرا على المشاهدة. لا تنسوا الاشتراك في القناة، الضغط على الجرس، الإعجاب بالفيديو.